In the heart of Rome, a city ruled by iron-fisted generals, ambitious senators, and powerful emperors, there was a power greater than them all. It was not a legion, a law, or a man. It was a flame. And the keepers of this flame were 6 women, living a life of absolute secrecy. They were the Vestal Virgins, the most revered and enigmatic figures in the Roman world. Outwardly, they were symbols of purity and piety, living goddesses, who held the fate of the empire in their hands. But what really happened behind the closed doors of the Temple of Vesta? What was the secret daily routine of the women who commanded the respect of emperors, but who could be sentenced to a horrifying death for a single mistake? Forget the myths. This is the story of their hidden world. Their day was a meticulous schedule of sacred rituals, political power plays, and constant, terrifying pressure. The fate of Rome rested on their shoulders, and the punishment for failure was to be buried alive. What was the secret they guarded so fiercely? And what did they really do all day to keep Rome's eternal flame and its empire from dying out? Subscribe to uncover the truth behind one of history's most powerful and mysterious sisterhoods. The common myth of the Vestals is that they were little more than pious, secluded nuns, living a simple life of prayer and tending a fire. The truth is far more radical. The Vestal Virgins were, in fact, some of the most powerful and legally liberated women in the entire Roman Empire. Unlike every other Roman woman, they were not under the legal control of a father or a husband. They could own property, write their own wills, and conduct business in their own name. They traveled through the city in carriages, a right denied to other women, and had a lictor clear a path before them, a symbol of magisterial power. Their influence was immense. A word from a Vestal could pardon a condemned criminal, and their testimony in court was taken without an oath, as their word was considered infallible. Their life was not one of simple piety, but a strange and intoxicating mix of immense privilege, political influence, and mortal danger. To understand their day, you must understand their sacred duty. At the center of the Roman Forum stood the small, circular Temple of Vesta, home to the Ignis Inextinctus, the eternal flame of Rome. This flame was not just a symbol. It was believed to be the very life force of the city. If it ever went out, it was an omen that Rome itself would fall. The keepers of this flame were chosen as young girls, between the ages of 6 and 10, from the highest patrician families. They would serve a mandatory term of 30 years, a life sentence by Roman standards. The first 10 years were spent as a novice, learning the complex rituals. The next 10 were spent as a Vestal, performing the sacred duties, and the final 10 were spent as a senior, teaching the new novices. Their entire existence was dedicated to this single, monumental task. The day of a Vestal Virgin began before dawn, with the most important ritual, tending the sacred flame. Their primary duty was to ensure it never, ever went out. This required constant vigilance and a deep understanding of the fire's needs. After morning prayers, they would perform other sacred tasks. They would fetch water from a sacred spring, which had to be carried in a special vessel that could not be set down, a test of physical endurance. They were also responsible for preparing the mola salsa, a ritual mixture of salted flour used in state sacrifices. But their afternoon was often filled with the business of the Roman elite, because their persons were sacrosanct and their house was considered the safest place in Rome. They became the trusted guardians of the city's most important documents. The wills of emperors, the treaties between nations, and the legal documents of powerful senators were all entrusted to their care. A Vestal's presence as a witness could legitimize a contract or a will, making them quiet but powerful players in the legal and political life of the city. As night fell, their most important duty resumed: the long, silent watch over the flame, a responsibility that never slept. Of all their duties, which do you think was the most difficult? The constant pressure of keeping the flame alive, or navigating the dangerous world of Roman politics? Let us know in the comments. The most shocking truths are still to come. Our knowledge of this secret world is not speculation. The ruins of their home, the Atrium Vesta, or House of the Vestals, still stand in the Roman Forum today. Within this vast complex, archaeologists have discovered statues of the Virgo Vestalis Maxima, the chief Vestal, their names and honors inscribed for eternity. These statues give a face to the women who held this incredible power. Ancient historians like Plutarch and Tacitus also wrote extensively about them, detailing their sacred duties and, more grimly, the punishments for their failures. They tell us that if a Vestal let the flame go out, she would be taken to a dark room and stripped and flogged by the Pontifex Maximus, the chief priest of Rome. This was a punishment for negligence, but for breaking their vow of chastity, the punishment was far worse. The immense power and privilege of the Vestals rested on a single, fragile foundation: their virginity. In a deeply patriarchal society where a woman's value was tied to her marriage and her children, the Vestals represented a third, almost supernatural path. They belonged only to the state. Their purity was a direct reflection of the purity and security of Rome itself. If a Vestal was accused of breaking her vow, it was considered an act of treason, a religious pollution that endangered the entire empire. The punishment was designed to be as terrifying as the crime was considered severe. The accused Vestal would be dressed in funeral clothes, placed in a closed litter, and carried through the silent city to a place called the Evil Field. There, an underground chamber had been prepared, containing a small bed, a lamp, and a little food and water. The Vestal would be placed inside, and the entrance would be sealed, burying her alive. It was a horrifying death, designed to erase the polluted woman from the world without the state shedding her blood, as it was forbidden to harm a Vestal. In the end, the Vestal Virgins are one of history's most fascinating paradoxes. They were women who achieved a level of autonomy and influence that was unimaginable for their peers. But the price for this power was their complete devotion to a restrictive and dangerous sacred duty. They were revered as living goddesses, yet they could be discarded with terrifying cruelty. Their story is a powerful reflection on the nature of female power in the ancient world, showing how a society could grant women immense authority, but only by placing them within a gilded cage. They were not just keepers of a flame, they were keepers of Rome's very soul, and their secret daily life was a constant, high-stakes balancing act between divinity and death. What do you think? Were the Vestals the most powerful women in Rome, or the most tragic? Let us know in the comments. If you're fascinated by the hidden lives of the people who shaped the ancient world, subscribe and hit the notification bell. And click here to watch our next video, The Dark Secret of Rome's Doctors. What really happened on their operating tables?